Okay, panel. Yeah, can I invite all the panelists to be on stage? And Shah, the floor is yours. So yeah, the future is here. We've gone around the world. We've heard from the Malaysian experience yesterday. We've talked about synergies and biodiversity. And so, what's next? What does the future hold for us as a country, as a timber certification scheme? And so these folks on stage will discuss more. Take it away, Shah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Abraham. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying on. I think it's going to be a very interesting forum. All our distinguished speakers from the earlier sessions are here on top, and I'm going to grill them. No. Okay, let me just introduce some of them that is new on stage. Okay, first of all, Puan Nuraihan. I think everybody knows her. She was our speaker yesterday, right? Belum lagi? Oh, okay, sorry, I got it wrong. There was somebody else from MTC, no? Okay, so Madam Nuraihan is the Chief Executive Officer of the Malaysian Timber Council. She holds a BSc in Business Administration. She's looking at me because she's given a new profile. I'm not reading the old one. And she started her career in MTC in 1995. And she brings a diverse depth in international trade and marketing, as well as communication in raising MTC's profile. So we look forward to have your input in terms of how we move forward and what innovative ways can we work that out. Okay, then we have Christopher. Christopher is from Forest Solution. I'm not sure which country you're from, Chris.
South African.
Oh, okay. Christopher is from South Africa. He is the Director of Technical Services and Consulting at Forest Solutions Malaysia. Yeah? So you're based here now?
KK.
All right, KK, all right. So Forest Solutions manage 3 industrial tree plantation projects in Sabah, establishing fast-growing species for veneer production. Chris looks after Mercia Group, forest asset, and lead development for the Viso Apps ERP used across all management contracts. He also consults in area of project feasibility, valuation, timber sourcing, and certification compliance. Prior to Forest Solution, Chris was the planning and technical service manager for 130,000 hectares greenfield planted forest in Sarawak. So over 29 years of forest industry experience in South Africa, Scotland, and Malaysia. Welcome, Chris. Okay, and then we have Michelle. Met Michelle earlier today. She's the COO and co-founder of the Fuller Academy. Michelle is over the last decade, she has worked with impactful startups, international organizations championing SDGs. Michelle has also founded multiple impact enterprises working with vulnerable communities. At Fuller Academy, Michelle seeks to make sustainable education accessible and relevant for businesses by providing skills and knowledge to complement their sustainability journey. To date, more than 1,600 participants from various industries have signed up for their programs. Mike, Dr. Michael Berger, I don't think I need to introduce you. Everybody here know. And Anne, yeah, she was introduced earlier this morning. So Anne is from Timber Chain, IOV42, UK. She was our earlier presenter. All right. So for this afternoon's session, we are looking at innovations, partnerships, how does certification stay relevant, cross-sectoral exchange, synergy for certification. So I would like to start off with the man himself, Michael. What are your views in terms of the current demands and acceptance of Malaysian certified timber products in the international market?
That's maybe the question where I have the smallest experience for the answer. Well, PFC, we don't gather in general information about timber flows, about material flows, price developments. On the international level, we don't do that. However, one thing what I can say, yesterday we've seen some statistics concerning export of Malaysian timber, and I guess that's a strong message, a strong language that Malaysian timber is demanded. We see one example or one evidence for that in our organization. I mentioned this morning an organization from a European country that is regularly checking PFC, how credible it is, and they are just knocking at our door at the moment with a few specific questions about Malaysia. And that's on the one hand, it's a little bit sad that we have to go through such a process. On the other hand, the positive thing is they would not do it if the planet would not need Malaysian timber, and that's the good sign.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. You know, this morning you mentioned that the timber demand moving forward will be 4 times, the amount that we are currently using, and that will put a lot of pressure, And I would like to go to Puan Nuraihan. Okay. Being in the market for so long, how do you see certification by Malaysian timbers have progressed in terms of acceptance to the international market?
Thank you, Encik Shah. Okay, I would say that, ever since we have our own national timber certification scheme that was initiated over 20 years ago, our Malaysian certified timber products have actually reached to many countries and have been recognized and also well accepted. And I think today we have more than 70 countries that we exported to for our Malaysian certified timber products. And these include the top 10 of our major export markets. The top 10s are the, number 1 is the US, second is Japan, third is China, fourth is Singapore, Australia, India, UK, Korea, Philippines, and the Netherlands. And of these, I think the 3 largest markets for our Malaysian certified timber products goes to the Japan, the Netherlands, and also Germany, which account for almost 70% of our total export of certified timber products. But having said that, I think in terms of global presence, the Malaysian certified timber products have presence in almost all the continents, Europe being the largest, and of course in Asia, in Africa, Oceania, and also America. So this is a positive development showing our Malaysia's ability to comply with the market requirements to supply the certified timber products that is imposed by the importing countries. And I believe that the demand for sustainably harvested timber will continue to be on the rise. Number 1, because of many countries now are moving towards carbon neutral, and where the timber plays a vital role in the climate change mitigation to reduce the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And there's also a surge in terms of the green products due to the growing public awareness of the climate change. And of course, I think now with the development of the new trade policy on the deforestation free products regulation in the EU and the US, also will see an increase in terms of demand for certified timber products. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Chris, I won't go to the other two yet because they are not in the industry. As someone who is managing tree plantation, I don't know whether it's on. Can you just?
Yep.
Oh, okay. And having spent decades in this area, how do you see certification being accepted, especially Malaysian timber itself?
All right, so we have quite a mixed experience in the sense that the plantation projects that we do, we specialize in obviously planted forests and the greenfields project. So in the projects that we have in Sabah, we are still planting. We're not selling any of that timber yet. We have had some wild acacia harvesting, which we have sold off down to Sarawak. And we've always sold our mixed tropical hardwood we sell into local market. I think it's interesting that the local market doesn't differentiate. So there's no request ever from local buyers, whether it's certified or not, which I think is a bit of a gap, actually. I think that's somewhere where pressure could be applied. On the other side, I can say that our neighbors of ours who were at one point exporting acacia plantation wood to Vietnam were certified, and they were receiving a price premium for that wood, and a fairly substantial price premium in the order of sort of 18-20%. Yeah, so that was encouraging. They haven't done it for a long time, and I don't know if that would still be met, but that was encouraging to us to see. And I think it is important because, both the acceptability but also the potential for price premium is important because there's obviously a cost we carry as the producers, right? In the year before actual certification, I think we did about 3,500 hours of training, retraining of our staff. We have hundreds of documents, so there's a significant cost that the operators have to carry, and having the ability to differentiate your product in the market is one of the key benefits that you hope to realize. Right? So, but I think from an acceptability point of view, the buyers that we've been speaking to, because we are double certified with the one that shall not be named, and MTCC. So we're double certified on one of our projects, and everybody's sees the two as equivalent. And we don't see any selectivity from the buyers. Yeah.
Okay, so I see a big investment in terms of the training, have and need to be done, right? So maybe it's time for us to go to Michelle. How do you see Fuller Academy contributing towards, the capacity building for certification?
I think definitely we can contribute in different ways from the upstream down to the downstream of the value chain as well. But for Fuller Academy, we work very closely more towards the downstream. So looking at the manufacturers, the companies, the industries who produce the end product, and also with the consumers as well. First, in order to create that awareness, but also to build capacity in terms of understanding of sustainability. So this drives the market demands, and this also drives the sustainable production and consumption of timber as well, which hopefully can also help to boost the increase of timber certifications. So for Fuller Academy, we also work with different banks. We also work with institutional investors that look at governing their portfolios in order for them to be more sustainable in different areas of their business. So this helps to increase certain incentives, certain financing as well towards these players for them to procure more sustainable materials within their production. So I think this is a very long answer and maybe a more indirect way on how we can support timber certifications. But I also do see some areas of collaboration that we can do with MTC and also MTCC as well in order to increase the knowledge and awareness within this industry.
Okay, I was so impressed with SFI just now, where they did the training right up to from 30% now right up to 70%, right? So maybe Mike, do you want to add something on how countries or industries can look into their capacity building? Is there any studies in terms of Malaysia that to see our our needs in terms of capacity?
Yeah, you use the term capacity building. I would like to use a little bit a different term, but in the same context, because it's also, you know, we were talking a bit about innovation this morning. Yes. We also need social innovations. True. We do not just need technical innovations to improve systems or to improve data. We need a different approach how people operate, how to learn. At the end of the day, again, certification is a technical thing where you get a piece of paper, but the key thing happens here in the brains, in the heads of people. So education, training, what like Fuller Academy is doing, or what SFI told you this morning, this example, that's actually for me an essential point to further develop that certification has a chance in future, that we can raise demand for products without the awareness of the people, without training, without mental innovation. We will not drive these changes. So it's a key issue in any country, whether it's Malaysia, whether it's a European country. There is no difference between Europe, the so-called super developed countries, and other countries in different parts of the world. It's a mental attitude, it's a social innovation, it's training, it's learning, it's capacity building.
I think you hit it on the head. I think it's also an incentive for industry to see that this will add value to their organization, you know. I mean, we're trying to encourage industries, both downstream and upstream, to come into being more sustainable. And I think these are among the points that would add value to them coming in, you know. I totally agree that we shouldn't just focus on the technical part, which is certification, and not look into the bigger picture of how to attract people to come in and buy into being more sustainable. Not buy into being certified, that comes at the end of the process, but buying into being sustainable. I think that is a big push that we need to do. Maybe I'll go to Anne. How do you see technology, you know, being a technologist, coming from a technology background, how do you see technology play a role into innovating sustainability, especially in the timber industry?
Yeah, I'm curious if you were reading my notes, because I was going to make the same point. I come from a technology company. Technology is not a silver bullet. It's not going to solve more than 20% of the maximum 20% alone. I think it's much more about the behavior and the mindset, as Michael described. There's the tactical, technological innovation that happens, but without the mindset and the behavior to take that forward, it's not going to make a difference. So an example of the tactical and then of the behavioral. So we are working, actually we've done a little project with PEFC to try and integrate the two systems so that there's very simple automatic certification validity checking. Make life easier, remove the manual process there. That's a really tactical thing. It's probably a quick win. The more difficult thing, and where I think there's a much bigger opportunity for the market here, is to be innovative in your behavior. So put yourself in your customer's shoes? How can you be proactive? How can you really understand what it is that they need, read about the regulation, think about what they're going to need, and think about how you can support them? So how can you help service your customers and help them get ahead? And I think that does require an innovative, a creative mindset.
Yes, I think that will make the difference. That you know, for behavioral change, you know, you need to be innovative in trying to change, to do the behavioral change. Because if you see all those companies that actually embrace sustainability, it starts really at the board, you know. When the board buys in, then it goes down. A lot of social enterprise are successful balancing social responsibility and profitability because the people that starts are already embedded inside them that they want to do both, you know. So I think what Bank Negara and the Bursa is trying to do in trying to put ESG is something that they're just trying to kickstart, you know, so that people start thinking about it and have a little bit of forcing them to do it. But hopefully, we need to be more innovative in trying to get the mindset change, you know, into buying into sustainability. Puan, do you think MTC can play a bigger role in terms of trying to encourage this mindset change in the industry? How?
Yes, I think it's a transformation, I would say. You know, changing mindset is one. But at the end of the day, I think it's the responsibility, you know, being responsible for the trade that you are in. And ESG, like it or not, will be here for us to be mindful and fulfill in terms of our requirement. And as a timber industry, which is predominantly very export-oriented for Malaysia, this is something that the industry would need to be mindful and fulfill the many obligations or the policies that have been instituted and to comply with that. So I think one good example is currently with the EUDR, which require a very stringent traceability on geolocation. So this will be something that we have to be prepared for it, and I think we need to be in the know in terms of how this will affect our trade. And I think geolocation is something which requires that kind of technology, and we need to have that in place. And so we hope that PFC, being the tech integrator, will include this somehow, this important requirement into consideration for timber certification. So this is something which our industry is trying to fulfill, but at the same time, we will need that kind of support. And yesterday, we have heard about the Sarawak efforts. They have the digital tracking system, which is very good. I think it's a step in the right direction to ensure and improve in terms of efficiency and transparency. So all these are actually a process, a journey which, as an industry, we will need to fulfill the requirement, which is out there at the same time, to be responsible in what we are doing.
Yeah. At the end of the day, all the tools is just to provide evidence, you know, in terms of what we want to do, right? And we need the evidence for us to showcase and be transparent on how we do things. But the bigger picture is to actually get industries to embrace, you know, both buyers and sellers. I just want to ask Chris, because you've worked with various different companies. From your own experience, why do some companies embrace sustainability going towards certification more than others? Is it just the bottom line?
I think largely yes. You know, there's such a massive effort required, and there are barriers to interpreting, and there's definitely in some companies they operate very thin on the ground in terms of capacity, right? And the guys that they have are very stretched. You know, so to dedicate resources to certification without an obvious upside is, it's pretty hard
tough,
for them.
yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right. You've got to show that there is a benefit, and that's not easy. I mean, at the moment, without a price premium, you know, the carrot's gone. We're left with the stick, right? So, you know, that's very hard for. As soon as they have markets which don't demand it, they would rather service those markets.
Yeah.
And maybe that window will close one day. It's not closed yet. That doesn't necessarily imply that the guys are operating incorrectly, because, you know, statewide there are regulations that, you know, Sabah has really good regulations, Sarawak has really good regulations that the guys have to comply to anyway.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily mean they're bad managers and they're not doing things sustainably. They just don't necessarily have the evidence, and they haven't gone through that process. Right? But certainly it is hard to convince them if there isn't an incentive.
Okay. As a practitioner of conservation, I find it very heartening to see, you know, all this certification and biodiversity protection is almost coming together. You know, there were times, Michael, that the NGOs were very strong in terms of even saying certification would assist in protection of biodiversity. You know, some are quite critical over it. You know, you heard about, you know, using it as greenwash and stuff like that. You know, but I think the convergence is coming. It has to come. You know, when you are really concerned about the future, it has to come, and certification is the tool for evidence. So before I go to Anne again, just to maybe Michael, you want to add something to that. You know, there's this convergence between the bigger picture and the technical tools. You know.
Yeah, well, what you just referred to with biodiversity, that's of course in lots of countries or political environments still common practice to say SFM fails, certification fails because they don't deliver. They have not been delivering concerning biodiversity. There's something wrong. And my traditional answer on that is, so, well, then something not wrong with the system, but maybe with the process. There is no discussion. There is no really, not a real exchange between the different parties and sharing and really developing. If SFM does not deliver biodiversity, then we have to work on SFM and we have to talk to each other. It's just a perspective. What do we actually want to achieve at the end of the day? And you know, just an example that came today to my mind, how PFC itself changed its perspective. I was here in Kuala Lumpur for the first time almost exactly 10 years ago with a working group defining requirements for sustainable forest management in tropical forests. Today, 10 years later, we are setting up at the moment a working group how to better promote timber from tropical forests. So a totally different approach. So not defining any more specific requirements for a specific region, for specific forests, but saying, hey guys, here's happening something incredible, and explaining this to the planet, explaining this to the people. So a very different mindset, not stopping, not being critical, just going ahead and saying, hey, look at those things that need to come together and to work together.
Yes, I totally agree. I've got something on the tropical forest, but that's later. Maybe, Anne, from your perspective as a training background, coming from the training background, how do you see the kind of trainings that you can actually offer to the industry. Sorry, Michelle. No, she's confused. Michelle. Okay, so coming from the training background, right? What do you think training companies or could offer in terms of programs for the timber industry? You know?
Yeah. I think definitely we would need to complement whatever is happening within the industry on the certification side, to have more conversations with associations like MTC and etc. to understand what the industry needs. But also to know on a global landscape and a global outlook that by 2025, the landscape of work and the way that we look at skills needed at work will be very, very different. There's this thing called green skills, which are sustainability skills that needs to be integrated across all kinds of job functions, irregardless whether it's a direct sustainable job or it's a job where you can be an accountant, you can be a banker, but you will need some kind of knowledge or mindset in sustainability. So these are what we call as green skills. And the International Labour Organization has predicted that by 2025, there will be 25 million green skilled jobs that is needed to be filled in. And with the current rate that training and education, formal education is going, it's estimated that 80% of those jobs will be unfulfilled. So it can be generalized and said that within all kinds of industries, we will see that gap by the next few years, that there will be lack of this kind of sustainability mindset within all levels of the industry. So for us, we bring that practical knowledge by working with industry practitioners, developing the courses that we have from the fundamentals of ESG, sustainability, even down to marketing as well. So how do you position and market your products in a way that resonates with your brand value and doesn't greenwash? Yeah, so these are some of the ways that I see.
I'm asking you specifically on that because your focus is on ESG.
Yes.
Embedded into your training, right?
Yeah.
Because what we want is, we want our workforce not only do work because that's how the company wants you to operate. We want you to understand. We want the workers to understand that you play a bigger role, that you yourself is invested into becoming a sustainable staff, a sustainable workforce. And that is a special skill that you need to put during your training program, to put it into their head that you're not just coming here to be trained so that you can do your paperwork and do your stuff and go back home. No, we want it to be embedded during their training that this is something that you're responsible and you take it upon yourself.
So if I can add an example please. As well. So we worked with one of our clients. She's a champion in sustainability within the organization. And they have this technology that they want to implement, which helps to make their processes more sustainable. But then where the roadblock comes is with the finance, because finance is the one that approves the budget, right? To them, it's another cost. So how we overcame that is by going to the finance and giving a training on this risk and opportunity assessment and also financial modeling in terms of impact investment. So by understanding that this is the potential long-term returns and this is the risks that they're mitigating, then it makes sense on a financial wise, because in the long term, they're saving money and they're also reducing the possibilities of getting fines, being banned from exporting as well. So this was able to create, of course, that sustainable side of the company, but also to convince decision makers in investing in sustainability as well.
I think that's an important innovation in human capacity building. We need that. You wanted to say something, Chris?
Yeah, sorry. Actually, Michelle and I had quite an interesting discussion earlier, and in terms of what they offer, and I can see in our organization that there's actually a lot of scope for that sort of holistic view. But I think it's also important, like from an operator's point of view, to highlight that we face a massive skills shortage coming up in the forest industry. And particularly at vocational level, but even getting foresters, somebody mentioned it earlier, sorry, I don't remember who in a presentation, that getting foresters to come out of the uni and go into the forest and be there actively is very hard. Getting that next level of management down, the supervisors trained, effective in the forest, willing to be in the forest, is really, really difficult. And you know, we need closer collaborations with the universities and vocational schools to produce these people.
Yes.
Yeah.
I totally agree. In Malaysia, I'm sure it's elsewhere, we have this shortage of foresters, coming up, maybe MTC, do you understand the problem the challenges that we're going to have, not having those experienced foresters anymore, Is there any plans to mitigate this one?
Okay, let me use this. Okay, thank you for the question. For foresters is something that we have not looked at. Is because within the industry we do face a shortage of the middle management skill workforce. And for MTC, we do come up with programs, we call it human talent, to fill in the gaps, because in the industry, to move towards IR 4.0, we need this segment of expertise or skill workers to come and work in the industry. As we know, I think our industry is not an easy industry to attract workforce to come in. So I do sympathize also in the forestry sector is facing the same issue. So it's the same challenge that we are facing, how to retain or get people to come and work in the industry, in the forestry as well as the industry. But this is something that for MTC, we look after the interests of the timber industry, where we are trying to bring in this set of people with the engineering background to come and work in the industry, so that we can increase the level of productivity, apart from looking at automation and mechanization.
Okay, Michael, just your thoughts on what kind of cross-sectoral synergies, partnership do we need to do more? What is the PFC's approach to more collaborative efforts? Who do you think we should? I agree with you. More discussion, more dialogue, more. But who are the key people that we have not embraced that we should do more? Besides opening an office in the EU office,
Well, I actually wanted to use the EU office again as an example. Not our EU office, and that's a topic that we could fill the whole evening with partnerships. I would like to use the EU or this Brussels community as an example. In Brussels, the place where people say that's the heart of the European Union, and the European Commission is working there. And there are lots of forestry stakeholders. So even not going outside forestry to other sectors, just when you look at the forestry stakeholders, lobbyists, association, industry associations from different sectors. And when you look at those, although all somehow linked to forest, to the forest industry, they don't talk the same language. They talk oftentimes very different languages. They have very different views, very different interests, and that's damaging us from an internal perspective, or that's damaging the forest. Well, damaging is a strong word. That's weakening the forestry sector. And that's one of the reasons why a few of these Brussels forestry sector organizations started developing a kind of glossary about, concerning harmonized communication, how to cooperate. So that means we have to even start within the sector, or then next step, other commodity other commodity sectors having partially similar problems or challenges like forestry, to cooperate with those organizations to get a better understanding, again on the political level, to educate, to inform organizations. So that's still a long way to go, and that's one of my personal priority items at the PFC in my function.
Okay. On that point, I think we should take from the floor.
Yeah.
For us to have more collaborative discussion with members of the floor. Is there any questions?
There's actually one online, Shah.
All right.
So I'll read it out, and actually it's related to what Mikhail talked about. So, hi, my name is Azwan Azmat from Macquarie, Malaysia, Sdn Bhd. I have a question for Dr. Mikhail. In your opinion, how fast will the EUDR influence the US market? For example, will something similar in terms of regulation be enforced for the timber product coming to the US? And perhaps, I will take my host's prerogative to expand that to the other panelists as well. What would your response be from your particular perspectives, whether it's industry, but starting with Mikhail?
So just to double check, it's specifically the US market?
Yes, he was asking the US market, but maybe can talk about global trends.
Yeah, I guess there is no difference between timing-wise concerning US market and other markets. I guess it already started impacting the markets, because people are talking about that. Wherever you go, EUDR is the top topic. So that's what people are concerned. People ask questions, how is it going? What do we need to do? So it already started. And of course, the formal part starts when the regulation will be enforced, when we know exactly what they demand, what the demands are, then it will go quite quickly. But I just can recommend to everyone in the sector, be prepared, follow the discussions, try to understand, try to work with organizations who have an understanding so that you don't miss it.
Does anyone else have any input on?
I just wanted to ask, as the US market is a very important market to Malaysia, how does MTC see whether it's going to influence the US market?
Yes, US is actually one of our, I would say, the biggest market, especially for furniture. I think our biggest market for furniture goes to US. And with the development from EUDR now, USDR is coming up. So it's getting more and more challenging for our industry. And we have to be concerned about this regulation coming up. And what I can say is that we have to have early preparation done to meet all the requirements. At the same time, what we want to see is that it should not be burdensome to the industry, because it will add cost. Meeting the requirements is something, but cost is another thing. So for MTC, we do help the industry. We have prepared the position paper to be submitted to raise our concerns on how the regulation is going to affect the industry, so that all this will be taken into consideration. And I believe that these concerns will have to be addressed, and for Malaysia to be given a chance to explain ourselves in the various aspects. And just now I did mention about geolocation. That is one thing that is very critical. And we need to have that good traceability system. And these are all costs to the industry. So we hope there will be support from PEFC, being a one-stop service provider, to assist our industry so that we can have this system in place for due diligence purpose.
Okay. Any other questions? This is your last chance. Today is the last day.
Thanks. I just a question. Sorry, to the lady from MTC. I didn't catch her name because you're given a few names, so I do apologise. Yes, yeah. You just mentioned geolocation. How difficult will it be to, set up some kind of online platform where the geolocations of all the forest permit licenses are stored? Because I think under the EUDR, any forest area over 4 hectares, you have to provide the geolocations for. So I would think all of the forest permit licenses issued in Peninsular Malaysia above 4 hectares. And, when those are issued, obviously, I would think, I'm guessing, but the forest operator has to create an annual harvesting plan or a forest management plan, and that will include maps, and those maps will have the geo coordinates of the GPS coordinates of the polygon of the forest area. So would it really be that difficult once a new forest permit license was issued to have some kind of platform where this is stored, even a copy of the license as well, so buyers who are doing their due diligence in Europe can access this? And for those further down the supply chain, we're able to, when we do our due diligence, we're able to identify where the wood product originated from, because we use the log removal passes, which has the forest permit license number on there, as a link. So if we're able to give that to our buyer could then go to this online platform, put in the name of the forest or the number of the forest permit license, and then get the geolocation and the coordinates that they like. So would it be that difficult, really?
Okay, in terms of difficulty, it's very, very, I would say, subjective here. I think maybe the forestry department can also support in terms of giving the explanation, because we are also relying on those data that is available, and this is something, the implementation, the mechanism to identify the coordinates and all that will need to be online on where it's available digitally. So I think Forestry Department is doing the transition under their project to digitalize all the data so that this information will be available in terms of all the mapping, the polygon mapping, that would help or facilitate our industry to get those information and be used as part of their due diligence process. So I think this is where we are having that difficulty now in fulfilling that requirement. So this is something that is very critical, I think, for the industry to have the information on.
Dick, sorry, if I can just add to that. I think if you're talking about companies that are operating within the context of a forest management plan, in Sarawak, Sabah, we have the annual work plan as well. Very easy. I mean, this is bread and butter, right? I mean, we do nothing without the geolocation. So it's not like the data doesn't exist. It's front and center of everything. I think perhaps where a difficulty would arise is when you're dealing with smallholders. And then you're going to need some kind of a body to facilitate the collection and verification of those locations. But certainly from a company operating under the regulations of the Forest Department, yeah, this is all known, right? It's very easy.
Maybe, Anna, you want to add something, being from the technology side?
Actually, not about this. If I could go back to your first question, because you're right, I don't work in the industry or have anywhere near the experience in the industry, but I do speak every day to buyers in Europe. And I think there's something positive to end on. You asked about the demand or acceptance for Malaysian certified products. So people that we speak with in Europe in particular, for them, certification is still 100% what Michael said earlier. It is the price of entry, if you like. When it comes to Malaysian certified product in particular, And this is in the context of regulation and due diligence that's required for that. We hear from a number of buyers, Malaysia's not a problem. Malaysia is a real leader and very, very strong at giving us all of the due diligence and the traceability that we need. We wish France, we wish the Netherlands, we wish Estonia were as good as Malaysia at sharing some of these things.
Wow.
You're quite hard on yourself,
Yes,
but
yes.
I think it is worth also celebrating, and I know the Commission does not make it easy for Europe or for producer countries, but I think there's still a lot to be really proud of and to celebrate as well.
Yeah, on that point, I personally feel, because we're talking about tropical rainforest, right? And Malaysia should take a bigger role and take the lead, actually, for tropical rainforests, because not all forests are homogeneous, you know. We have very challenging terrain and tree type species, and I think taking the cue from you that we have done this much, I think we should look into more innovations in terms of contributing back, you know, on what we need on the ground to make things better. Okay. Anybody else? Oh, there's one there. Yep. How much time do you have, Abraham?
Maybe the last one, I think, and then we'll do closing statement.
That's why I asked you. All right.
Hi, my name is Dairul. I'm from MIDA, Malaysia Investment Development Authority. So my question to the panelists is that, does any of you guys know what are the other government from other countries' initiative to encourage their stakeholder to adopt certification? That's question number one. And question number two is that, based on this 2-day conference, I take note that it's not cheap in order to get all this certification, right? So, in your opinion, can the company sustain in doing this? Is it worth the effort for them in the long run?
Okay. The first question, can you just repeat the first question?
My first question is that what are the government from other countries' effort in encouraging the private sector to adopt certification? What type of incentive? Do they give grants or do they offer tech incentive if they go for certifications?
All right. So what are the other countries doing to encourage taking up certified? You know, is there anything that within the countries in Europe that is encouraging the industries to actually? It's already a regulation, right? Maybe you can answer that, Michael.
So the question is whether countries in Europe are doing any initiatives to encourage the use of certified timber,
Yeah.
right? Well, they try in at least all the countries where we have PFC members. It's part of the daily PFC work. In France, for example, they have a very strong market engagement task force or unit, however you will call that, to try to raise awareness on the market for certified timbers. In other countries as well, I could list the big ones like Germany, like Austria. Market engagement is part of daily work of the certification systems.
And the second part is, since it's not cheap to go for certification, right? Is it sustainable for companies to actually want to go for certification? Is it worth it? I think
there's a. Well, I'm not sure whether I'm the one who should answer that.
maybe from the industry itself.
Yeah. So I'm going to answer this one very carefully. Look, I think there's many levels on which you want to derive value out of the certification process. We've always been a standards-driven organization. We have documentation, we have work standards, we train. Doing it and preparing it for certification is a whole other level, right? In terms of the diligence that you have to apply. But your organization is 100% better for having done so, right? For having completed the process. most of the cost is upfront. So in other words, it's that process of taking people out of production, putting them through training, etc. Once you've got through the initial hump, then, and you've got your audits done, then by and large the costs are not that much annually. There is a cost, and it's the audit cost. I think the biggest issue is whether or not, and I think there's some technological solutions that will help with this in the future, but the biggest thing is whether you can reduce the friction of the auditing process. I think perhaps people don't really understand, but forestry companies, and particularly if you're like us where we double certified, we're subject to at least 5 or 6 different standards that are audited sometimes 4 times a year. So we have probably 10 to 15% of our top managers' time is just dealing with compliance issues. And this is a massive drag on us. And so when you see the verifiers go from 300 and 350, it's like, you've got to prepare your entire staff structure to be able to deal with those verifiers and answer them coherently, right? So there is friction and there is a cost in terms of time. But in terms of adjusting your operations, once you've got that ball rolling, it kind of takes care of itself because it is the better way to operate. I mean, that you've got to be clear about. But yep, the fact that there isn't a price premium makes every board of directors sit and go, should we continue? But I think the other advantages outweigh that. And of course, we come back to this issue is, if you don't, will you have market access?
Okay, on that point, I think we come to the end, but I just want to wrap up by probably looking at what Chris has said, which is all this process that companies undertake or industry undertake is actually for the betterment of yourself. You actually evaluate yourself, how you do your work, and you come out far better. Going through the process. It's a painful process, I know. I brought the state park through CATS, conservation assured tiger standards, and then we have our mat. And a lot of my staff time is taken up. But at the end of the day, you really understand yourself better, where your weaknesses are, where your gaps are, and where you need to fill those places, and it will make your own organization much better. Yeah. Besides the getting accredited and certified, and hopefully in the future where the market is much better and more appreciative of our certification, you're already there, all right? Okay, so
Thank
with
you,
that,
Shah.
I pass back to Abraham.
I gave the panelists a homework, so maybe we'll do a lightning round, starting with Anna. 1 minute timer. If you can you can give a timer for 1 minute each speaker. Just closing statement, Anna, Michael, Mike.
I actually already said my closing
Okay.
bit, so I'll donate my time to someone else.
And I took so much time that I handed.
Are we just passing the mic? Thank you so much for having me on this panel. I think I really learned a lot, not coming from the industry. And I would love to have more conversations and to see how we as capacity builders and training providers can help to fill in the gaps, and also to engage with any of the stakeholders that you might have that would need this kind of service or knowledge as well. Thank you.
All right, thanks for the time. Okay, so I won't use all of it, but I would like to say I think there's an opportunity that we need to pursue, and that is that at a forest management level in Sabah particularly, Sabah is way ahead of a lot of places in the world in terms of almost every forest metric and forest protection metric. We're doing really, really well, and kudos to the Forest Department for the way they handle that and the way they manage us as operators. But I think, there are if you look at the way Sabah's heading, they're definitely looking at it from a landscape point of view. They're looking across the state, looking at what's the best application of land use, where are the HCVs, what should be protected, what should be put into agriculture, and what should be into planted forests. And there's no way to have this recognized currently. Everything is currently at FMU level. And I think that's, I understand why it is like it is, and I understand the difficulties of jurisdictional level approach, but the reality is the forests of the world were lost, death by 1,000 cuts, right? It's because there was a micro focus that, that we lost a lot of things. And I think having the opportunity to have a state go, look, we want to manage things at a landscape level, I think is something that ideally certification bodies and standards should incorporate. And I think that will bring a lot of people into the fold that were maybe outside of it at this point, and give us a bit more scale in terms of the wood that we produce. And to me and our company, the ultimate goal is that we want to be able to say we are producing Malaysian certified timber. That must be a thing. When you say it across the world, they must go, yeah, that's the thing I want, because the standard is there. And it must be our standard. It must be regionally specific and landscape aware, etc. So that's our goal, and I think I'd like to see that jurisdictional thing get some legs in the next few years. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, 1 minute. Timber certification is, if I want to say, is indeed a sustainability tool to give the right balance for conservation of the forest as well as the development of the timber industry. And I hope that all the necessary requirements required by our COC holders will be given due consideration to fulfill the due diligence process. And I also look forward to the future engagement. We would need to have more engagement on this timber certification. For that, I would like to take a little bit of time to just welcome everyone, to extend invitation to everyone to participate in our Malaysian Wood Expo that will be held in June, 18 to the 20th of June in Kuala Lumpur in MyTech. Thank you.
Thank you, Puan.
Thanks.
Let's give a round of applause to the panel for wrapping us up so nicely. Thank you. We'll move on to the closing remarks that will be delivered by Puan Sabrina, Deputy CEO of MTCC. Oh, need to transfer file. Okay. You understand?
Good afternoon, everyone. Assalamualaikum. And I hope everyone is still in a very good, fresh mood after a very good discussion with all the panelists this evening. All right, I will not take much more time. Marvin, can I have the slide on, please? I'll be doing the summary and also closing remark for our conference for these 2 days. Okay, you know that the opening ceremony is being by the Excellency Datuk Haji Fazilah bin Haji Yusof, our Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, as well as the Minister of Plantation and Commodities Ministry. All right, and some facts of our conference. We have 2 keynote speakers. We have 18 presentations that you guys have listened to. And we have 2 moderators with 9 panelists. And we have 175 physical participants and speakers for these 2 days. A round of applause for yourself. And we also have 125 online participants until today. So therefore, we have 300 participants for our international conference for these 2 days. Congratulations, you guys. Okay, and our participant does not only come from Malaysia. We have Brunei, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, Switzerland, Australia, Canada, Netherlands, and United States of America, and also from Philippines. So therefore, this is really an international conference. Okay, next. I will just share some of the input that we gathered together from the first keynote from Ms. Cham. Tropical forest is not the major contributor to deforestation, and we need to do more to promote the significant benefits of tropical forests and also timber products. And the most important is Malaysia is on the right path in implementing timber certification to ensure the sustainability of the forest. And for the next theme, which is the policy implementation, despite the issue and challenges encountered in the maintaining the certification by the certificate holders, MTCS has shown a positive impact in references to SFM, export of certified timber product, and also certification uptake by FMUs and also organization. The policy direction set by the government play an important role in mainstreaming timber certification in Malaysia. Efforts and also commitment from the forest manager as well as industry players to ensure the effectiveness of implementation of certification should be lauded. And the next theme, which is the community and industry experience, where we had the sharings. So the uptake from this one, we have seen the efforts and commitment by the certified organization and FMUs to the betterment of management process and also procedures. Timber certification also has shown community empowerment with the engagement by the FMUs and also the community within. And for the next, the second day, the keynote 2 from Mr. Michael Berger. Although the certification percentage around the world is still low, but there are high demand of certified timber product all around the world. And with the current development in policies, PFC has increased its efforts in EU politics and also decision-making policies. There are task forces that being formed to look into current and future needs related to timber certification issues and matters. And the most important part from this keynote is certification is not greenwashing. All right, and then we move to the next theme on the second day. We have learned from SFI that it's very important to connect the FMUs and the indigenous community, the young ones, students, and also working adults. We also see the possibility of joint certification by two countries, although it might take a long process before both parties agree to each other. We also have heard how this rubber plantation certification for smallholders is possible to be implemented in Vietnam. And for Team 3, Synergies in Sustainable Forests, we have heard how requirement in certification standard also look into the protection of the workers' right, be it in the forest, also in the organization, and also the government initiatives such as tax exemption, tax allowance, and also inclusion of certified timber in the government procurement policies. There are also the technologies that assisting timber traceability in the supply chain. And also speakers have discussed on the impact of certification to wildlife conservation, biodiversity conservation, and the value added from the areas and community within the certified FMUs. With these two dialogue that we had yesterday and today, the key uptake is we discussed on the challenges, initiative, engagement in relation to the mainstreaming of timber certification, and also we discussed on the market, policy, capacity building, innovation, and technology related to timber traceability. With all this, now, there is question to ponder when you're going home, or maybe you can start now. asking this first question. What would our forest look like without certification? And the second question is, are we ready to face these future frontiers? So these are the two things to ponder on the way home, or maybe a discussion later on for, some networking or connection after this. And with that, I would like to thank everyone for your participation in these 2 days, your active participation, and thank you to the AV with all these technicalities issues. Thank you to the team from MTCC, from Lestari, and also MTIB and also MTC to make this international conference a successful one. With that, I bid goodbye. Have a journey home. Thank you.
All right, I won't repeat what Sabrina said, but on behalf of the Secretariat, thank you once again, and we hope to see you in our next event.